That night, there was fog over Venice, but the mask maker didn't care. The light from his workshop's small window cast a golden ring onto the narrow street. Marco Bellini held his breath as he made the final touches with his hands. He had been making masks for 60 years, but this one was different. This mask had come to him through a strange commission. 3 days ago, a stranger had knocked on his door. The man wore a black cloak, and his face was completely hidden in darkness. "I want a mask that can never be removed," he had said. His voice sounded oddly as if it came from a void. Marco laughed. "That's impossible, signore." "Every mask has a fastening." The man shook his head. "Not for you. You are Marco Bellini, Venice's finest mask maker." Marco thought about the man that night. He never learned who he was or why he wanted such a thing. But the commission had been given, and Marco was a craftsman. Creating the impossible was his work. But there was actually a deeper secret behind this event. When the mask was completed, Marco examined it for a long time. White porcelain, delicate gold embellishments, the hollow spaces for the eyes were so perfect that it seemed to carry a soul. But behind the mask was a mechanism, a small, precise locking system. Once worn, it could only be opened with a specific key. And that key was in the client's hands. Marco wrapped the mask in soft fabric and began to wait. The client had said he would come at midnight, but no one came that night. 1 day passed. 2 days passed. Marco left the mask in the corner of his workshop and tried to forget. But every night, when he looked at the mask, he felt a strange sensation. It was as if the mask was watching him. It was the 3rd night when the mask disappeared. Marco arrived at his workshop in the morning to find only an empty piece of fabric where the mask should have been. The doors were locked, the windows were closed. No one had entered. But the mask was gone. That night, as Marco crossed the Rialto Bridge, he saw something. On the bridge's railing, there was a figure facing the moon. The figure wore a mask, a white mask with gold embellishments. The perfect mask. The mask Marco had made. His heart began to race. He ran toward the bridge, but when the figure turned, no one was there. Only the wind, mixed with the salty smell of the Adriatic. And then Marco noticed something on the railing. A small, golden feather. One of the mask's ornaments. But the real question was, how had the mask gotten there? The next night, the mask was in St. Mark's Square. It sat on a bench, directly under the moonlight. When Marco saw it, his breath caught. He took the mask, held it in his hands. It was still warm, as if someone had just worn it. But even stranger, there was a scent inside the mask. Jasmine. Sweet, subtle, unforgettable jasmine. Marco took the mask home and this time put it in a locked chest. "You can't escape now," he murmured. But deep down he knew. This mask was not just an object. Something was happening. That night, he dreamed of a woman. The woman wore a white mask. She was silently boarding a gondola in Venice's dark canals. There was no gondolier, only the woman, and that mask. Marco woke up sweating. He ran to the chest. The chest was open. The mask was gone. And that's when Marco understood. The mask was trying to lead him somewhere. On the 3rd night, The mask appeared in Campo Santa Maria Formosa. This time, it was beside a fountain. When Marco arrived there, a woman was standing next to the mask. The woman was old, perhaps in her 80s, but in her eyes was a young light. "Are you Marco Bellini?" the woman asked. Marco nodded. "Yes, and this mask is mine." The woman smiled. "No, signore, this mask was never yours. This mask is a memory." Marco was confused. A memory? The woman took the mask and caressed it, as if it were an old friend. "In 1720, I was a young girl. I was invited to one of the greatest balls of the Venice Carnival. There I met a man. He too wore a mask, just like me. We danced, we talked, we were together throughout the night. But when the carnival ended, we parted without removing our masks. I never learned who he was. Never." Marco listened silently. The woman's voice was trembling. "Years passed," the woman said. "I married, I had children, I grew old. But I never forgot that night. I never forgot that man. And now, before I die, I commissioned a master mask maker. A mask that can never be removed," I said. "Because that night, we didn't remove our masks. And perhaps we never should have." But the story didn't end there. Marco saw the tears in the woman's eyes. "Did you place the order?" he asked. The woman shook her head. "No, not me. But someone did on my behalf. Someone who remembers that night as well as I do." Marco's heart quickened. "Who?" The woman smiled and held out the mask to Marco. "Wear this mask, signore, and see." Marco hesitated, but then, slowly, he took the mask and placed it on his face. The mask fit perfectly, as if it had been made for him. And at that moment, Marco felt he was somewhere else. Everything around him was dark, yet also radiant. He was in a ballroom. A massive chandelier hung from the ceiling, candles reflecting light everywhere. People were dancing, wearing masks. There was music, there was laughter, there was life. And then, at the other end of the hall, he saw a woman. She wore a white dress, and on her face was a mask with gold embellishments. The woman looked at him. Marco walked toward her. They danced, without speaking, only with the rhythm of the music. Marco didn't know who the woman was, but she felt familiar, as if he had always known her. "Who are you?" Marco whispered. The woman smiled. "I am a memory, not yours, but someone's. And this mask carries that memory." "Which memory?" Marco asked. "Love," the woman said. "True, pure, never-ending love. That night, two people danced here. They parted without removing their masks, but their love never ended. This mask is the last piece of that love." And that's when Marco understood the truth. The mask was not just an object. The mask was a bridge between past and present, between two souls, between two moments. When Marco removed the mask, he found himself back in Campo Santa Maria Formosa. The woman was still standing there smiling. "Did you see?" she asked. Marco nodded. "Yes, but who was that man?" The woman looked up at the sky. "Perhaps I'll never know, but it doesn't matter. Because that night, behind our masks, we were truly ourselves. No names, no faces, just two souls." Marco held out the mask to the woman. "This is yours. But the woman shook her head. "No, signore. This mask no longer has an owner. This mask will go to those who need it. Every night, it will appear somewhere else, reminding someone of another memory." But the real mystery was where the mask would go. After that night, Marco never saw the mask again. But in Venice, every carnival season, a strange rumor would spread. Some people would see a white mask at night on old bridges, at square fountains, in narrow streets. The mask would sit there, under the moonlight, silently. And whoever wore that mask would be transported to a memory. Sometimes a happy memory, sometimes a sad one, but always real, always deep. As Marco grew older, he continued to think about that night. Who had the woman been? Who had placed the order? And that ball, that dance, that moment, was it real? But answers never came. Only questions remained, and that white mask disappearing into Venice's foggy nights. Years passed. Marco died. His workshop passed to someone else. But in Venice still, on some nights, a mask would appear. No one knew where it came from. No one could see where it went. The only thing known was this: the mask carried memories, and memories never died. One night, a young woman was crossing the Rialto Bridge. She saw something on the bridge's railing, a white mask with gold embellishments, perfect. She approached, took the mask. Inside was the scent of jasmine. When she wore the mask, she found herself in a ballroom. Music was playing, people were dancing, and at the other end of the hall, a man was standing. The man looked at her. They danced, without speaking, only with the rhythm of the music. And that night, they parted without removing their masks. But their love never ended. Because some things never end. Some moments live forever. And some masks hide not just the face, but the soul. There was fog over Venice. The canals were silent. The moon cast a silver light over the old stone buildings. And somewhere, that white mask was waiting for the next memory. It would wait. It would wait forever. Because some stories never end.